I am muted. Hooray.
There it is.
Welcome, everyone. Another great start. This is like 3 in a row I've done. Really good starts. Welcome to the Sheep Seats, everyone. I'll do my intro again. I am Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep on Underdog. I am joined by a distinguished guest here this evening in Brendan Tuma, who you will know from Twitter as Too Much Tuma, and the head of MLB Info at Underdog. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really well. I was on vacation for a bit, and we were just talking offline. I'm one of those people who, when I am on vacation, I get back. Like I love to get back right to work and everything. And this is the time of year for baseball where people admittedly stop paying attention to everything. Whereas April, everything just has so many eyeballs on it. Like now is a time when you can take advantage in all your leagues. And as you know very well, you can take advantage of some of the ADPs in the seventh inning stretch on Underdog.
Yeah. And even like when it comes to Roto, people start falling off their free agent tracking and their lineup setting this time of year, either because they're falling behind or whatever. And I feel like even in DFS, you start people that have been losing start dropping out, and you get really a smaller group of people playing. So let's hop right in here, because you never know how long it's exactly going to take to fill one of these guys. So we're going to just enter seventh inning stretch. Waiting for 7 people. That's perfect. All right. So before we really dive into this, you seem to have been on a nice adventure in Europe there. You were posting some pictures, and the thing that caught my attention was that you said you got to play wiffle ball in a castle. So I need to hear that story before we really get into anything else.
For sure, yeah. I'm like a huge wiffle ball fan, which
Okay.
I'm like actively looking for a league, like a men's like intramural co-ed, whatever it is, league
Pro league.
yeah, pro league to play in. And all my friends love wiffle ball. This wedding I was at, it was in Dublin. It was hosted at a castle that we stayed in for a few nights. Everyone there loves wiffle ball, so it was like this whole running joke. Oh my god, when we're all over there together, we have to play. And yeah, it was really cool. So
Did you have to bring the equipment?
yeah,
Okay.
the groom himself, I didn't plan anything. The groom himself was bringing a bunch of stuff over, and like other games as well, and we had a really great time. We were just talking about how nowadays in the summer some people might stop paying close attention to every single thing happening in baseball, but it's also equally important to take some of that time away. It's a long season, and yeah, I think that stuff's good. Take time off work a little bit. But when you come back, be ready to come hard, and that's where my mindset's at for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's why we are doing this stream tonight instead of a Friday night. I'm getting out to some woods this weekend, doing some camping with the family, and we were talking before this started how it's nice to get out and just reset like that. And I think even outside of this tournament, or just the like fantasy gambling life in general, it's good to take those breaks. Take them when you're winning, take them when you're losing. Like, just get used to it and not like being tied in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I know the first thing that you said to me when we were talking about doing this show is we need to talk about Ellie De La Cruz. So while we wait for our 5 people, let's start here. Let's start with wasn't the first week of him being called up, he hit for the cycle, which is a ridiculous feat. He is right now ADP 19.4, and he doesn't fall. I can tell you that from doing drafts. It's not like he's falling. He's cooled off a little bit, but the hype's still high. I've seen, I forget what national writer was trying to hype him up for the All-Star game because it would be exciting for the All-Star game. So like everyone's full bore on Elly De La Cruz. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I already know we're not going to get to like there's so much meat on the bone with MLB Best Ball in general, just strategies to discuss, player takes, macro stuff, micro stuff that we're not going to get to it all tonight, of course, as much as we're going to try. But like this Elly thing, I mean, so MLB Best Ball is not football, right? Like football is crazy popular for a reason. But if something like this was happening in Best Ball Mania where a player like I'm trying to think of what even like the example would be. And like, yeah, like Bijan goes in round 1, Jahmyr Gibbs goes early, but like the fact like if I didn't know what Elly's ADP was, and I would have guessed, like I would guess around like the 50s or something, but even then at one point that felt really high.
Yeah, and you'd be questioning that then.
Yeah, exactly. So when he first got called up, I did like a run of rankings. I was actually on with the Badge Bros when he got called up, and those guys were drafting, and Nez took him. I want to say it was pick 100, and it was right around there. And then I did a rankings like immediately after that, and I put him at 100 as a bit of like a placeholder. Like I have no idea how this is gonna go. 100 feels like the right risk reward for now. He has since shown some skills that, yeah, like 100 is probably too low. Like the upside here is immense. Once you start getting past those top stud hitters, the stud aces, like he should absolutely be considered. But and the other thing about Elly is like, first of all, his name is Elly. Like that just adds to that. Like he has a fun name. The Reds are exciting right now. Everything he does on a baseball field goes on a Twitter highlight, whether it's running or hitting. Even his foul balls get these crazy exit velos. He has a cannon for an arm. So he's just so present in a way that some other players who might be as good or better don't get that same amount of publicity. So again,
Jonathan
like
India, even on the same team.
Yeah, like I was gonna say Spencer Steer is like someone who's
okay,
he's
sure.
not, these guys aren't as good as Elly, obviously, but like Elly just has that flash. And anyways, just a long way of saying there are so many reasons to be in on him, and it's like terrifying to sit here and say, oh, you can't take Elly, because if he just goes on like a heater during this tournament, especially if it comes in the playoff weeks when you need him most, it's gonna look really good. I think aside from like obviously the strikeout rate is one thing. He's doing really well right now, but he has a 431 BABIP. That's not going to last. He has a 32% strikeout rate. That's like a little worrisome. And I just think so often we see hitters come in, they do really well right away because they were either hot when they got called up or the league doesn't know how to approach them. And then the league adjusts to them, and then they start to struggle for a bit before ultimately figuring it out or not. The timing of this tournament is so that if he just goes cold for this next week, so many people are going to be locked in to these very aggressive prices on Elly. And I don't know. I feel like the way to play it was you either took him very late before we even knew he was getting called up, which I do have a buddy who has like several shares of him in that sense, or you just wait to see if he falls. And if you miss on him, you miss on him.
Yeah. So
I don't love chasing him all the way to the top.
Right. A couple things. Just the other thing that stands out on the stats page is this WOBA and expected WOBA being 175 different, and expected WOBA about 300 is under league average. So that's another sign on top of the BABIP that he's getting lucky on his batted balls. Whether that can he be a guy that has good luck because of his speed and strength? That could be, but these things aren't sustainable to what he's doing right now. I think to me, the fact that he's not up to 35-40 immediately on the K percent, like some people are, and like a Jared Kelenic when he comes up came up originally, sort of
Nolan
thing.
Gorman, yeah.
Yeah, that he's still maintaining. Well, it's up a little bit more than 30 that he was doing in the minors, but the fact that he's maintaining and it hasn't really gone up, I think, is a positive sign. But just he's also running hot. So the other thing that you mentioned about him climbing up and grabbing him late, I think there's some like if you're drafting this contest and you were drafting in the season long contest, you're feeling the Corbin Carroll effect here. Or even if you drafted last year, you're feeling the Julio Rodriguez effect, where you saw the successful guy that returned value, even if you took him as he was climbing up the board. And you're focused on those two sorts of guys, and you're not focused on the year Jared Kelenic came up, the Spencer Torkelson, or, all these highly thought of prospects that are still good, or are improving, or have shown flashes, but they came up and struggled. So people see this in immediate success and they want to put them in that bucket with Corbin Carroll and the bucket with Julio Rodriguez, and ignore the other bucket where he could eventually go in a month of all those other guys.
Yeah, and I think that, and it's not even so much like I love it. Like everyone loves Ellie. Like it's kind of terrifying to say like, oh, he's not gonna be that good right away and stuff, which is the case. Like I think there was a real case to be made with someone like Anthony Volpe entering the season. Like, hey guys, we're gonna have to be a little patient. Like we're not sure how this is gonna go right away. Like Ellie's tools are insane. Like he had that night in AAA where he had all those exit velocities over 150 miles an hour, and that's when I was really like, wow, like this isn't just like, oh, this is a top prospect coming up. Like this is like Acuna Tatis type stuff. And that's all. Like I think Ellie can even still be good. And this ADP is just insane. Like he's comfortably, like the market is saying it's not even a debate. We're taking Ellie over Pete Alonso and Paul Goldschmidt and Bo Bichette and Trey Turner and Rafael Devers. And those guys, like even if some of them are just like have not met their expectations this year, like those are just confirmed locked in studs who are going to very likely give you production. Whereas with Ellie, there is the risk that it's, just not that much production if the strikeout issues become too much. But it's also just like the floor ceiling combo is just very off with him. And that doesn't even add in the fact that this is a best ball tournament that's being, people have been drafting this for months. There aren't that many people, but there are people who took Ellie in like the 180s over a month ago. And then there were people who took him at 100 and took him at 90 and took him at 80. So even if you take Ellie De La Cruz at pick 19 tonight or tomorrow and it works out and you get to the finals or the playoff rounds, you might be showing up with your round 2 Ellie against teams that have round 8 Ellie, round 9, round 10, and some who got him really late. So I just think like if you have no Ellie at this point and you're just starting to draft, then I honestly might just fade him and know that doesn't feel good. But the alternative isn't that great either, I don't think. So so yeah, that's just kind of those macro thoughts about this. Isn't, when you draft in the 7th inning stretch, you're not just drafting in a pool of 12 people and trying to beat your league mates. You are competing against everyone else who already had access to Ellie at way better prices.
Yeah, and no Bosex here. Got him at 210. And, I do feel like I said at one point about Corbin Carroll that I wish I had taken him when he was before taking him, like, because last year I did take Julio Rodriguez in the late rounds in the early part of the drafts. And then this year, for whatever reason, I made the mistake of not taking Corbin Carroll at a good price. And similarly, when this contest first opened up, this second half one, I was not willing to take the risk when I should have. That was the time to take the risk on Ellie. It was when he was in the 210s or whatever. So yeah, we are one person away, and we have an extra special guest here. That was sort of a surprise guest. We have, as we fill, I'm adding him in here now. We have Michael Lackey, who I don't know. You want to introduce yourself, Michael? I'm not. I know who you are, but most of the audience here isn't too familiar with you. They've seen your screen name. They've seen your screen name before.
I'd like to think they have. My name is Michael Lockey. I mostly have a poker background, but I also dipped into the fantasy sports and crypto streets as well. Dark Sheep and I have been friends for a very long time in the Discord streets, and we've just bonded over time. And now I like to gamble at Underdog, and here we are.
Yeah. You were the one that actually finally pulled me into Underdog to, I don't know, 3 seasons ago. You and someone else were just sort of running the tables on the when there was like $300 top prizes on the MLB daily contests.
Yeah, I took a little break. I want to say it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I had quite a run in them. And then I had a season or two where I didn't play as much. I was just kind of having bad results, or my time was preoccupied. But this season has been quite sweet. I will not lie.
Yes. On top of your recent run in MLB, you did have a nice NHL win there the other day.
And I'll be honest, like I'll even give a lot of that credit to the guys and the boys in Discord that we work with on a regular basis, because truthfully, hockey is probably like my 5th best sport, but there's a lot of game theory involved, and I'm a game theory first kind of guy. And, I was one of the only players in the hockey finals that had players from both the Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers, right? And that was not an easy stack to get to. That was not it also had Dallas Stars in it. So I had 9 players in the conference finals. So it was, it wasn't an easy lineup to get to. Obviously it was probably like my 50th or 70th lineup, but when you put in the volume and you play a lot of combos, you can quote unquote get lucky.
All right. So Corbin Carroll goes there at 5. This is easy Freddie for me. I have no problem taking Freddie. I've started a lot more of these drafts infielder first. If I can get Freddie.
I was just going to ask you about that, how you think that's shifted from the off season, because entering the season for those season-long drafts that we were talking about, it was so much focus, and you have to get an outfielder round 1. And when I do my rankings updates every couple weeks for this tournament, it doesn't feel as intense that you need that outfielder round 1. I still think I prefer leaning outfield early, but I mean, you're drafting, way more obviously than I am.
I do have one direct comment on this. So I find every time I'm reviewing my teams that when they have Freddie Freeman, he has all the points. Mm-hmm. He doesn't get whatever. Maybe he just has a high floor. Whatever it is, obviously he's amazing to be an infielder in contention with all these outfielders. But every time I review a team that has Freddie Freeman, he just has all the points. And how can you fade that? It feels like
he does. His game is kind of modeled he's a line drive hitter. He's in a good lineup. He does more than just hit homers. He doubles. That matters for Underdog. He scores runs. So he is kind of built to be a pretty consistent player, which in a weekly best ball that probably matters. Whereas if you took Kyle Schwarber before the season, you just took a lot of bad weeks for a while until he went nuts in June type thing. And Freddie feels far more consistent.
Yeah, baseball is such a swingy sport that having what you could consider a consistent guy is pretty valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marcus Semien is actually on that list of guys similar to Freddie Freeman that I also feel comfortable taking even 10, 11, and then taking an outfielder after.
See, that was something you were making fun of quite early when this contest posted. Have you come around on taking Semien early?
I have.
I can see both sides of this.
We are on the clock.
I just realized I'm in this draft auto drafting.
Oh, are you? Well, nice
I
price.
promise I haven't touched a thing. My phone is not. I will not be doing anything.
Oh, you can draft.
Awkward. Nah, I mean, I planned on auto drafting. That's my strategy is a little different than most in this.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We can get into that next if you want. But this is a combo that I have multiple times. This is a combo that I feel like you can start Freddie and Jose Ramirez, and then like stop at 5 infielders.
So something I want to mention about, we just came off the Ellie discussion about whether or not he's worth taking there at 19 or not, is that I think this in-season contest has been a great opportunity to get guys who are being drafted in rounds 1 and 2. You can get them in rounds 3, 4, 5 during this in-season contest. And to me, the market has been very reactionary for this in-season contest for the 7th inning stretch. Whereas, Nolan Gorman got off to this really great start. The contest opened. He's going in the 70s. Jared Kelenic was going really early. And like Trey Turner got off to a slow start and he was falling. Rafael Devers hasn't had the season many were expecting. And his ADP is like 35 or something in this.
I check my ranks every few days, and I update it based on ADP, and it really surprised me how quickly and how drastically people are moving across the board in like a 3-day stretch.
Yeah. Whereas to me, the move isn't to chase Ellie up the board. The move is to look, I can get 5 players who were preseason top 30 guys, and those could be my first 5 picks. And that's how I would be playing the early rounds of this.
Absolutely. And then like I don't know exactly where Nolan Gorman got to, but pretty much every draft he's losing a few bits of ADP. So as he's a little bit colder now, these are the guys you can start taking. Maybe that you were a little bit off before, or at least even if you weren't on them now, this is the time to take them if they do have another hot period in them, not when they get hot again.
I think there are definitely guys who, they got off to a slow start before the season. They were outside the top 100. Maybe they're not that good anymore, but like to be fading Trey Turner and Jose Ramirez was going late for a while. Rafael Devers is like these are just like such proven studs. You just want as many of them as you can possibly get on your team.
Yeah. So Chip points out here that it probably is a little bit more drastic because there's not as many drafts. So if somebody falls,
the contest is still very
draft,
empty, right? It's very low percentage filled. So I think I agree with that concept that, even a couple of drafts is probably, there just haven't been that many overall.
Yeah, we're still
22% is more full than I expected, if I'm being honest. But still, I mean.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting spot. I guess everybody is listening to us about Ellie as he's falling here. I'm surprised Chip's not taking him. Chip is a Ellie drafter, definitely. But I do want to take a detour from infield here. I love all these infielders minus Ellie, but I want to grab an outfielder here. And I think
Schwarber already gone.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yep. DJK took him.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm going to take Mullins here.
This is usually where I'm locked into a Turner Schwarber combo.
Yeah, so that leads into Chip's taking Ellie there. Yep. Okay, so Mike, you messaged me the other day that you have a very interesting aggressive strategy for this contest. So you want to just outline that while I sort of queue up some of my stack partners here?
Absolutely. So it's not rocket science. Let's just start there, right? It's just I am a numbers guy. I'm not a baseball nut. I don't know the players inside and out. But what I do know is when I look at this contest, how do we win this contest? Well, the simple version is, of course, we want to score the most points during the scoring period and then, obviously make a run in the playoffs, et cetera. So the very first thing I did, and it was funny because on this show a couple weeks ago, you had talked about this exact topic. I had done it on my own, and you laughed when I presented it to you because, oh, well, obviously you didn't listen to my show, sir. And I was like, okay, guilty. You got me. I did this. And I reviewed it, and we were pretty in line with our overall takes. And our overall takes is that baseball scheduling is not as cookie cutter as football scheduling. And basically, there are teams that have larger number of games remaining than other teams. So very specifically, in the regular season portion of this contest, the Philadelphia Phillies have 30 games. That is the number one team. They have 30 games in this contest.
The first scoring period.
Yeah, the first scoring period. I guess that's how you describe it. And then there are 7 additional teams that have 29 games. And then beyond that, there's a mix of 26s, 27s, and 28s in there. So I literally decided that I am virtually only taking players from those 8 teams. The couple of exceptions are I added a lot of the first rounders back in, so I'm not fading Mookie Betts. I'm not fading Ohtani. There's no reason to do that. I have Garrett Cole in there because I was getting a little too much Kevin Gossman as the Toronto as my starting pitcher 1. And I was taking him over Cole by accident a couple times. And I was like, this just doesn't need to be the way I need to do this. But long story short, when I do man the drafts, I have been trying to formulate some stacks. And, some of these teams are bad. There's the Detroit Tigers are in here. There's one other fairly bad team, but if they have extra games during a week, this is good for the batters, one, and it's also good for the pitchers. This is something that you brought to my attention in the preseason, I believe, or maybe it was last year even. If you stack pitchers in these formats, you increase the chances of getting the 2-pitcher week. So if they have 6 or 7 games in the given week, then generally 1 or 2 of the pitchers is going to pitch twice within that week period. So if you have multiple guys from the Toronto pitching staff or the Cleveland pitching staff, the Philly pitching staff, some of these teams, then you increase the chances of having that player in a 2 pitching week. And that's like such a big advantage when you're trying to get weekly scoring.
I love everything like you just said. I think that's exactly how people should starting to be approached MLB Best Ball, because for football, I assume you play NFL Best Ball as well, Mike?
I play every sport essentially.
Yeah. So like football, I'm blown away by the amount of, it's like a running joke at this point, but like the amount of galaxy braining that people do trying to figure out how to get these little micro edges in NFL on Underdog. And for baseball, there's so many steps we have to get to before even just discussing like, is this player good or not? Because the ADP, if you talk to like most, baseball folks, this ADP is wild. I don't think that everyone drafting understands like the tournament structure, understands closing line value, understands things like what you're talking about, the amount of like games remaining, even the scoring. Like baseball is so many people play Roto 5x5 that focuses on batting average and all this stuff. And like Underdog scoring, it's a little weird. It's like doubles get point. The pitching it's so innings and wins and quality starts focused. So like there's all these different ways to be attacking this. And I think the biggest lesson that I've gotten from all of this is just that there are so many edges to be had. Everything you just described is a huge one. It can be added to the list.
So like earlier we were talking about some Guardians and Reds ADPs. Well, the Reds are on this list. The Guardians are on this list. So I might be part of the reason these guys' ADPs are tanking, because like I'm taking them like 4 picks ahead of ADP sometimes because they're the next best guy on my list, because that's just the reality. Click on my team right now. I have an auto draft team going on in this draft.
Yep.
So I'm going to take Philly, Toronto,
looks like
Philly
you got
pitching, and Minnesota pitching. Yeah. I'll end up with a bunch of infielders and then a bunch of outfielders, and then I'll finish up with pitching. That's how most of my auto drafts go.
Yeah, that comment there from B Shot about walks and doubles, when I ran the projections before the season using the Bad X, Alex Bregman stood out as someone who was just like really undervalued, and it's because in the traditional roto game of fantasy baseball, like you don't get extra points for doubles, but he got so many doubles and he gets so many walks. That's the other thing too. It's not even just walk rate. It's literal the sheer volume of walks you get. So playing time is huge, and I think that's where people have missed in a points league structure like this on Marcus Semien the past couple years, where he keeps outperforming expectations, and it's because he hits leadoff and he never ever takes a day off. So he has so many chances to accumulate stats in a weekly scoring period.
So this is a pretty common structure for me that I don't have a pitcher at this point, because I really like this group of pitchers here, starting with Logan Webb, and then just there's this group here: Logan Webb, Dylan Cease, Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Brandon Woodruff, Justin Verlander's in here. Some of these other guys I'll take, but not as much as that list there. I really like this group here as far as the ability to put up spike weeks. So I find myself really gravitating most drafts to this style, where I'm getting outfielders and infielders the first 5 rounds and then going heavy pitcher, just because I like this group. And I feel like I'm giving up a lot of floor points in the position, or I'm taking a lot of good floor points in the position players here. So that's just my feeling. I don't have any math or anything to back that up.
I think it's an opportunity to take advantage of like some falling ADPs, like Sandy Alcantara, a guy who was before the season seen as a round 2 pick. I think he was, he goes late. You can get some of those injured guys, Rodon, Woodruff, who we kind of project to be back. You never know, there could be a setback, but I think before the season, in addition to like the outfield scarcity stuff, one of the biggest talking points was having the pitching, because that's what can be the separator, because pitchers are going to get hurt more often than not. And if you don't have enough aces by the time you get to the playoffs, you're just not going to be able to match. Like hitters can have like a fluky week. You can there's a little bit more variance going on, I feel like, with hitters in a weekly period, where it's like not everyone is going to show up with 3 aces who can get you the 7 innings, the win, the quality start, and a number of strikeouts. And if you have as many of those guys as possible, that's how you can really, I think, like take down one of these contests.
And it's not that I dislike any of these guys going up here. It's just that, like you said, ace, I feel like I can find these aces later, whereas you couldn't as much. And maybe I'm wrong and overestimating the chance that Brandon Woodruff comes back. Oh, I'm on the clock here. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Take Adley Rutschman here.
With this structure build, how many pitchers do you expect to end with?
This will be 7. I'll probably do.
Do you ever do 8?
I haven't for a while.
I think I've got a couple, but very few.
But I would have to.
It was
wait.
something like I think I went like 10, 12 rounds maybe with no pitching, and just had like get them all at the end or something. I don't know.
A true like 0 pitcher build.
Yeah, just trying to do something different.
Yeah, anyone.
Also, you're drafting to be right? You're trying to just run with something, right? So like it's certainly feasible.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I lost my train of thought for a sec.
You'd say it derailed. It's my dad pun of the day.
Like what? Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because like he hasn't been, but like Justin Verlander is still like sitting out there, which is like those are the type of pitchers you can get. And again, he's someone I know he hasn't had the year that people were expecting him to have, but like he fits that archetype of in a weekly scoring period, he can get the win, the QS.
Yeah, he can bring the heat.
Yeah, he can get everything. Whereas I think again, so many people approach even Underdog Best Ball from a roto background, where you can have like a really good start for a roto pitcher is like 5 1/3 innings, 3 earned runs, but you only gave up 3 hits and 1 walk, so that whip is low, and then you get 9 strikeouts. That's actually not that good on Underdog because you didn't get the QS. Whip doesn't matter, and that's why I think some of these like boring older pitchers, Lance Lynn, Charlie Morton, are interesting on Underdog because there's you just want innings. That's such a big part of the scoring.
Yeah, and those guys have good prices. Nobody's really, because they continue to struggle a little bit every start.
But like you said, Mike, about like just needing to be right is like you don't need these guys to be studs all year long. You need someone
just in
to
a
have
given week, right?
Yeah, you need
They can
someone to
take
have
turns.
the ability where some of these like rookie pitchers, they're just, especially once you get into September and they start getting these innings limits and they might get shut down, they're not going to their teams aren't even going to give them the opportunity to go 6 innings. Whereas Lance Lynn, if you try to take that ball away from him in the 6th inning, like he's going to be
all right.
first
That's
in your
actually
out.
a question I have for you guys. This is me not knowing baseball likely as well as either of you. So the famous example for me for this is like Steven Strasburg. So like who are the players that actually have risk in the second half of like getting shut down for more or less, from a fan's perspective, we could call it no reason, but like from reality, the reasons are they're protecting their assets. Is there anyone that comes to mind there?
I'm pulling up pitcher ADP right now, and I'll be on like the rookie pitchers aren't going like that crazy early. Like it's not like, oh my God, this is totally insane. But I would say it's really just like the rookie pitchers in general. Like you're just gonna want to be.
I guess young arms are the thing that you have to protect the most in all of baseball.
It's also It's also, I don't know. Maybe I'm like talking.
Literally couldn't tell you any pitcher's age if you asked. If you gave me $100 free roll, I couldn't even get close.
The other thing that comes into it is whether their team's competing or not for the playoffs. Like they're more likely to shut a young guy down. They're injured now, but Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo for the Reds in the offseason.
Those are good examples. Those are guys that I actually don't mind targeting in late rounds. Those are reasonable examples. That makes sense.
Like Taj Bradley has a 146 ADP. That would make me a little nervous because again, he might be good for you in like the regular season of this contest, but this is set up pretty similarly to something like BBM where all that money is at the end. And I don't feel confident that Taj Bradley is going to be on a normal workload in the 2nd and 3rd week of September.
But I also don't mind risking it as my 7th pitcher if that's how the draft turns out.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair. Because you might need.
If he helps you get there, that's one thing.
Because at the end, you're sort of deciding between the old guys that don't get strikeouts or the young guys that might have innings limits. So I want to take a detour here.
I want to comment on this when you're done.
Bring up the pitchers or Miami?
No, the player you just drafted.
Okay, yeah. So it's been an interesting year with Miami. No one's really talking about it too much. Nobody's talking about like the rise in Cincinnati prices. But Luis Arias I don't even think he was drafted in every draft for the season-long contest. Jorge Soler was a guy that was a last-round pick. He started a little bit higher because of initial projections and then just slowly fell. Arias here did fall, but I don't actually, based on how they are performing, I don't mind taking them at current ADPs. But I just think Miami is a really interesting team to talk about. I know Mike, who drafted, as you said, you're not like a super into baseball hardcore guy. So I know you started with projections, and you said to me at some point, you're sending me screenshots of lineups, and I was like, oh man, that's kind of gross, all that Miami. You're like, they're free and they're projected for like 1 million points at the end.
So no, very specifically, I remember you hit me with the Will Smith "Welcome to Miami" meme when I posted my ownership. I showed you my ownership, and so my overall comment is So Arias, or however you say his last name, obviously he's an amazing hitter. He should be like one of the highest floor hitters available. Maybe the other exception that comes to mind is Bobby Witt. But I had 50% of him in my 20 or so full season drafts that I did on Underdog, and I'm not doing that well. And he's actually not making my weekly scoring lineups very often. So I actually am, obviously he was free, and the fact that he's scoring any points is relevant, but it gives me a lot of pause drafting him at, even pick 102, which is great value for the ADP. But even I was drafting him at 240 at the beginning of the season, and he isn't cracking my lineups very often. So I'm concerned. I just want to express that. Is there thoughts there? It could be small sample size, no big deal. I'm not trying to oversweat it, but it just feels odd to me.
I would say like the concern that you described me is like he's basically hitting 400, which no one's done since the 40s, and like you said, it's not like a guarantee that he's like cracking your lineup. It's like,
yeah, he's not even that good. He's not putting up real scores, right? So
that's interesting. I had not considered that because I'm not really going through and clicking through my lineups. I'm like checking each day at my advance rates, but I have a hard time like deciphering which lineup I even want to look at because I don't have 20 of them. I have 120 of them. So
I usually have 120. This was a spot. I just don't know that much about baseball, so I was kind of going in blindly swinging and just using the bat projections, which obviously has good enough value that like stack a few guys, it's good enough. Hopefully I get lucky in that too.
I think it's one of those things where it's like he's in the news because he's hitting close to 400, and that makes you think, oh, this guy must be awesome. But then when you really look at the Underdog scoring and what matters in that, like you come to realize he's good, he's fine. Like you said, he does have like a weekly floor to him, but it still just might not be enough of like a difference maker.
Maybe those points are just incredibly useful when he does provide them, and that floor is obviously great because they go right into your points bank at the end of the week. So maybe I'm not, maybe I'm undervaluing it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think like when for the season long drafting, and I viewed so much of the end game of drafts as propping up your floor. I really focused on and like recommended that people focus on not taking some super risky rookie who might not even make the team or something, but just take this boring veteran who should have a job all year, and just trying to avoid those empty roster spots. And yeah, I just think that
most sports you can't find that in the last rounds.
Yeah,
like in football, that's not that real.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And like in football, there's this whole conversation: should you take, Ty Chandler? We don't know if he's the backup to Madison or not, or should you take this like tight end who we feel pretty good is going to have a job? And like it's easier in baseball, and the offseason ADP was like very exploitable. This ADP is like crazy exploitable to the point where like I crack up so much. Like if I'm doing a football draft, I always have it in my head like, oh, I want an ADP value because all these people have done studies to show that like getting in draft ADP value is like really good for like your prospects at the end of the season. But like for the 7th inning stretch, it's like, who cares like what your ADP value is, because it's truly all over the place. And like you said, it changes every draft.
Yeah, I was sweating getting Austin Hayes back there.
He did table, right?
He got to me there.
Are we believers in Baltimore?
I think the offense. I do.
I got some nice tickets to make some runs in the playoffs. So
the pitching, I don't know. That's the big questions there when they're relying on Kyle Gibson.
Sheep, what's your pitching staff look like now?
All right, so we're pretty weak on pitching here. Logan Webb.
This is Hunter way Brown, too thin for my liking.
And Lucas Giolito. I'm kind of hopeful that Giolito goes to a better team and starts getting more wins.
That's interesting.
And I don't have much on the trade market discussions. I can't play the what if game there. Those are fun.
in general, with the extended playoffs that they implemented last year, there's not a lot of sellers at this point to even
That's a
really
good point.
start discussing.
So remind me of the playoff structure now. There's some teams get a bye. Is that new, if I remember right?
Yeah, top 2 in each league get a bye. 6 teams in each league make it, so 12 total teams. But the wins thing is like there's this tendency in fantasy baseball analysis just say, oh, wins are like crazy fluky. It's not a great stat to discuss someone's performance. So like just ignore it. And if you run hot with wins, great. I do think a mistake that I made in the preseason, I was really, really in 100 Green as a breakout pick, and I still really love his skills. But I know he's hurt right now, but like even before he got hurt, he only had like 1, maybe 2 wins, and it took him forever to get that first win. So like, I still think there's something to be said for drafting pitchers, not only who go deep enough into games to be able to get a win, but are on a good team.
Got him.
That can have that happen as
Yep,
well.
he had before he got hurt, he had 5 quality starts and 2 wins.
Excuse me.
It's all right. But yeah, I went into the season, to answer your question. I was pretty iffy on Baltimore because of the error bars on all the young guys performing. But I've seen enough this season that I'm pretty confident that because they've withstood injuries to key guys and other guys have stepped in. I feel like as a unit, and like they just called up Jordan Westberg, like they even had some guys that could become and fill in.
Yeah. They're like the Rays, just with how smart they are at managing the entire 40-man roster. They have like, I think it's the third best record in all of baseball. It's like, and it's been this way for like a year at this point, like since Rushman came up last season. It's like the sample size is getting pretty meaningful.
I think this is a interesting comment. Wide receivers, because they have a good QB, get boosted up, similar to the wins get boosted up on a player with a better lineup behind them, a pitcher. Who I do not like Braxton Garrett at any price. All right, so this is another section of the draft where if you start early on pitchers, you can start accumulating San Francisco. I think they're a really great pick in this part of the draft. They have a bunch of good picks.
Has Jock gone yet?
No, you're gonna laugh when you see his ADP. He's 180.
Yeah, I know they have some Coors stuff towards the finals, or maybe in the finals, I think it is. But the other thing that's nice about those Giants guys in best ball is like they can get annoying in regular season long fantasy with all the platooning and even in game. Like some games in a daily lineups league, I won't start Jock if they're facing a lefty, and then I look at the box score and he went 2 for 3 because he came in midway through the game. But in best ball, obviously, that doesn't matter. You're just like getting the points throughout. So, I think the Giants are kind of a nice undervalued offense in general.
And the way that they've run with injuries, some of those guys have been getting more playing time than we expected, even in the off season, which is not really a factor that you're thinking of.
I will say you're a man after my heart with this Baltimore, Toronto, Cleveland stuff. So that's all me. You're probably directly stealing from me every pick.
Well, yeah, that is kind of a weird thing of you coming on here and telling me that, because since you've told me that, I do know if I start with like Philly or Baltimore, which are 2 teams that I love for this contest, that I should make sure to see if you're in the draft or not.
Did you just?
I think this is roughly 75 for me.
I just took Ryan Mountcastle as my last pick.
Oh, right. Yeah, I see like Lance Lynn sitting there, and like that's this is the territory where you might get interesting.
So I've got 5 infielders, and like I said when I started, Freddie, Jose. I'm going to turn off infielder here, and just focused on pitching and outfield. Stupid button.
I like seeing other people do that too, because I have suffered through that many a times.
It's something I've never talked about. I don't think is how annoying those buttons can be. They
They're
make
great.
total logical sense, but whenever I'm clicking on them, I'm not thinking about the logic. So I am going to take Brian De La Cruz here, just to build on this Miami stack. Brendan, when we talked on the off season about the season-long contest, and our friend Chris, aka Baseball, who's gracing us with his presence this evening as he is in a legal area, thankfully for the week. The numbers he ran showed that stacking weren't as important as we thought it was the year before. But when it came to this contest, and obviously I didn't run any numbers, I'm not as skilled at that as him, or we didn't really have well, I guess we could take like a weird sample period from previous seasons over the same time frames that this, or similar to how Leone in his Best Ball manifesto just sort of simmed or took all scoring weeks and analyzed them as if they were all happening at the same time. We could have done that, but I didn't do any of that. But my gut feeling was that stacking for the shorter period contest was a lot more feasible than it was based on the numbers from before. So what's your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, so I think and I'll have to be getting going here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Got some baseball work to do for Underdog coming up, but I think this is kind of like a good signing off point of just talking about how young MLB Best Ball is in general, because this past off season was the second year that the scoring was the same. It was different in 2021. So we really we're in year 2 of this current format, and this is the first time we've ever had the in-season contest. So we're learning so much more about the game, like things like Mike was talking about with like the schedule stuff. Like I hadn't even like thought of that yet, but like that makes like so much sense if you're getting these like extra games, and like there's so many ways to attack it right now and everything. So I think we're learning so much more as we go. I think Chris did exceptional work this offseason, like you said. And the stack, like there were some things that Chris pointed out that made it like late round pitchers like weren't good bets in 2022. And that led me, it was pretty convincing to me. Like, I don't want to be betting on those guys this season. That's why I liked going, pitching, by like round 10 or something, having most of my staff filled out. All that being said, though, stacking, Chris found it was a little inconclusive. There was some good in it. There was some bad. It was hard to understand, like, okay, if you stacked Aaron Judge last year, like obviously that was good, but is that because it was Aaron Judge, or is that because it was like of the stack and everything? So to me, but it makes intuitive sense, right? Like if you have an offense that outperforms expectations and you have so many pieces of that, like that's going to be really good. So I do think it can serve as a tiebreaker. I think it matters more in the later rounds, whereas I can't think of an example right now, but like let's say the Orioles were super cheap and you took a ton of them and then they were awesome. Like that's going to matter. I don't think stacking Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna, took all that much guts, or that's not going to be so much of a separator. Because those guys are going to be like good anyways.
Right.
So to me, like structure was always the most important thing this past draft season. That's how I would be playing this contest as well. And stacking, I like it. I don't want to be like too all in on certain teams, because I think about like this, like if you had the Reds this past 2 weeks when they were just on this like heater, the team was really fun, everything was going well for them. Like if you have all these Reds, like you're probably doing pretty well. But then when they go cold, you're still going to need production in round 2 of the playoffs for this contest, round 3 of the playoffs. And if I think that's just like a big way of saying like I'm still like I would love to see what Chris comes up with this offseason when he looks at the data, because to me it will serve as a tiebreaker for some decisions, but it's not the most important thing for me. But maybe that's that I'm not saying like that's definitively right, because again, this is the first time we've ever had the in-season contest, and it's only year 2 of this format of baseball best ball.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Brendan. You want to shout out? I mean, you got your Twitter handle there. I know you tweet all your personal and underdog writing. Anything else you need to shout out before you head off to your late night news shift?
Yeah. No, I think I'm trying to go hard with these last 2 weeks of this contest, just getting exposure out for it, talking about some strategy stuff. I love this. Everything we talked about, like I said, like we could go 2 hours, 3 hours, I'm sure. There's so much meat on the bone. That's the phrase I'm going with. And yeah, it was nice to meet you, Mike.
Very nice to meet you.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the draft, guys. We'll talk in soon.
See you.
See ya. All right. So I'm pretty flat.
I have something to follow up with on what he was saying.
Okay. Yeah, on stacking. Yeah.
So like, results oriented street real quick. I put a lot of time and effort into the hockey contest in structurally how I wanted to build. And I really, really strongly feel like both for hockey and basketball, and also for a future, actually, I would say all sports for the playoff versions, the ideal way to build, I think, is to have equal exposure to 4 teams in the conference finals. And I think having like 4 combinations of 3 is likely a really optimal build for those playoff structures. I think the heavier stacks tend to have trouble advancing. That's what I noticed a lot of, even though I had, teams, that, should have done well. They just kind of didn't. Right. So I think in this particular contest, obviously the extra games is somewhat a big advantage. And I want to take advantage of, does the team have 7 games in a week? Well, I want to have a lot of players, that can have a high ceiling that week when they have those additional games. So in the small sample, we want to capture upside, I think, as much as possible. And because there's so much variance in baseball, I kind of feel like stacking just makes sense because players and I guess teams kind of get hot together. That's kind of noise a little bit, but obviously every time the 2-hitter does well, it increases the chance of the 1-hitter doing well, and etc. So that was a little bit of rambling there, but I still feel like I may even say I might prefer a bunch of mini stacks. Like give me 6 2-stacks. Okay. Maybe that's better. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's a little correlation. You're hitting it from different positions and places, but you're not like relying too much on it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the people coming from no Bo Sox here, very pro stacking in this format. I assume you mean this contest. The 4-week period, and then
you have everybody in this draft watching you. Like, are you that obvious? Do we have a delay here, or do people just know what you're taking in front of you?
No, it's fine.
They're like, man, this dirt sheep's in a draft again. Let me go watch him draft like an idiot.
No, these are the same people. I have a really nice.
It's a small community. This fantasy baseball stuff.
Yes, yeah, we're trying to grow it. That's my main goal here in doing this. Not to win. Okay, that's the main goal, to win, but the alternative goal is to help grow.
You are a very pure heart when it comes to the baseball, and I respect you a lot for it.
There's not enough money on the line here. It's not like there's millions of dollars on the line.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yes, that's what we're trying to get to. But yeah, and it probably isn't beneficial that a lot of these people I talk to a lot, that you in another place, but a lot of these people are in the Bad Bros Discord. So yeah, it's probably not the most strategic advantage, but I'll deal with it.
Well, you also have Galaxy Brain, like having the previous guy and me on definitely helps your long run fantasy experience. I feel like, right? Like,
yeah.
And I'd even give the example, like when I coach students in poker, even if I'm superior to them, I still feel like I get a lot out of it because it tests me in a few spots and makes me like it challenges me in certain ways.
Right. Yeah, and like just a little bit more on stacking here. Chip has a 2-man stack Dinger team like you were describing, where there's a bunch of 2-man stacks in 10th, but that might be due to the pitchers. And baseball, who we were talking about before, who ran the numbers, the shorter time period makes stacking better. So that sort of gut feel is kind of throughout the hive mind. And always take fewer pitchers, as I'm contemplating taking an 8th pitcher here in this build, just based on how long I waited. I don't know how to finish this guy off.
I bet I'm going to auto draft that Brandon Belt in front of you.
That's all right. I queue him up, but I never get to him.
I think I'm short outfielders right now. I think I'm going to take 2 more. I say that like my phone's not 5 inches from me, but
yep, you are.
No, I'm super awkward about the ethics of drafting in the same draft with somebody and talking about it. So I'm super going to be very not involved in that conversation. It's a tough conversation in poker, but
sure. Yeah. So I just what I really need is I just need a Underdog to hire me to go work with Brandon, and then I don't have the ethics involved, and I can just work on that side.
Understood.
So yeah, it's kind of a weird build. I don't know. I like these pitchers.
Looks fine. What's weird about it?
Just that I didn't. I guess not. This you're right. This is fine. I think I'm gonna circle back here and add another infielder.
Yeah, I mean, I would add one more to close out with 6.
Yeah, especially taking 2 Baltimore guys together. I always get a little bit leery that your stacks are in the same position. I kind of like to spread them between positions, which I did a big Baltimore stack.
Yeah, I was gonna say I only stack it like 4s or more, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take another Cleveland guy here. He's
Trevor Story still on the board. He's an interesting.
Yeah, he is.
Right?
He is interesting,
and he's actually could be interesting on your team because you're so strong at infielder that it could support him. He's not going to be back for a little while, right?
Yeah,
but when he comes back, he rates to be quite relevant, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, obviously, like that's.
I mean,
Boston could be out of it. That's a thought.
He had a similar surgery, right? So to Bryce Harper, he had it later. We don't know the details of the surgery, like the time frames and like the specifics, I guess, of these like
we're speculating
brace, elbow brace surgeries, whatever they're called. The severity matters, but we're seeing Harper, who came back really early, really struggle in terms of like power output. There was a Fangraphs article that I recommend go look up if you have a minute and you care about that thing, that some of his underlying power numbers are still all good. That it's just a matter of time, but there is some amount of who are you going to be after a major surgery like that? So that's the question, but they need a shortstop. So Boston needs a real shortstop, and he's the
if
best
they're completely out of it in mid August. Are they going to bring him back?
I don't know.
So like this, I think of other sports like basketball. Like if a team's really bad, and or even like Kyler Murray with football, right? If the Cardinals are 2-8 when he's ready to return, are they actually going to bring him back? That's a thought I have.
They're in 7th. That's all right. I'm going to take MJ Melendez, who's a guy who has.
Is he now outfield eligible?
Yes, he is now outfield in this contest.
Thank God.
he has really struggled to get it going this season. But I'm just taking him as a last outfielder here and hoping that he figures something out.
Got a puppy visit.
Hello, puppy. I don't like outfield at the end. Like I don't feel great about any of these guys. Like there's some guys with playing time, like Brian Anderson and Brandon Belt. He's getting a decent amount of playing time based on injuries and stuff. But
yeah, he's been playing middle of or like prime order, like 3, 4, like getting really good batting order spots lately.
Right, but he's only got his total accumulation so far this season has been pretty gross. So they're all kind of
well, they're fighting and running away from each other.
Oh,
yeah! Stop! Now they're fighting on me.
You having some dog fights there at your house? I think we got to report that.
So, like, their brother and sister from the same litter, that's a thing. They fight like brother and sister. I had no idea that was a real thing, but like it's outrageous. They MMA fight like 3 times a day. They just go to war.
All right. So the team I ended up with is a 7-6-7 build. Nothing crazy there. My pitchers, we started late. Logan Webb, Hunter Brown, Lucas Giolito, Jose Barrios, Ranger Suarez, Alex Cobb, and Grayson Rodriguez. I am accumulating a lot of Grayson Rodriguez. He has gone back to AAA and had like 5 good starts with lots of length, 8 to 10 strikeouts per start. He had one kind of stinker, but I'm not worried that he could, or I feel confident that he can come back and be good in the major leagues based on making corrections and his success in AAA. But when you're talking about pitchers that could have innings limits, I am worried about that because they have not shortened his length at AAA in those starts. He is still going long.
That should be a good sign, right?
Well,
yeah, I don't know.
The problem is that he's coming off of injury, and he didn't have a ton of innings last year pitched. And the biggest indicator of how many pitches or innings somebody's going to pitch in a season is how many they pitched the previous season. So, yeah, and that hopefully I'm hoping that he's not just the quad A pitcher. Like I'm taking that bet. Like I'm fine with that bet. The thing that I'm starting to accumulate a lot of him, and I'm worrying about is how long his starts are going to be if he does come back.
But let's not forget the reason why, obviously he's going to end up on a lot of my teams because he's in the 1/3 of the players that are being drafted on my draft board. But he's going to have 29 games. Is he going to get 2 starts in a week? Probably. So True. Like that stuff is so valuable. I wouldn't overthink that particular player.
Yeah. Okay. So then we go on to the infield. Freddie Freeman, Jose Ramirez, Adley Rutschman, Luis Arias, Ryan Mountcastle, Andres Jimenez. Yeah, that's an anchor team, anchor guys, and some guys that are accumulators.
I'm really curious about Luis. Like, I talked about him earlier, and maybe I just like the reason I look at my team's results is because I'm actually trying to find what does it take to win? What type of season am I looking for from a late round pick? Who's actually contributing? And and maybe I'm a little disappointed that I have all these Marlin teams that were absolutely like 18th, 19th, 20th overall picks, where like I'm relatively stacked at other positions and I've had incredible ADP value on all these players. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm using Luis very rarely in my weekly scoring. And I think that's interesting. And maybe, like I said, there's lots of reasons why that could be just noise, but I thought it was noteworthy. And I had the exact opposite reaction of Freddie Freeman. Like those were the 2 examples that I've found in my experience where I've been like, holy shit, Freddie Freeman's in, the most points scored of any guy I've looked at, more or less. Yeah. And Luis hasn't come in often enough.
Yeah. And maybe Rod's pointing out here that with the two anchors, maybe he is just that guy that can contribute that third when you need it. That's third score for the week. So let's roll into the outfield. 7 those. Cedric Mullins, George Springer, Jorge Soler, Austin Hayes, Brian De La Cruz, Josh Bell, and MJ Melendez. Pretty just boring meat and potatoes outfield here.
I got nothing else to really add there. I mean, I find my outfielders to be more frequently home run or strikeout type of players. Mm-hmm. And on those teams, I tend to prefer having a 7th outfielder when those are my builds. This Springer, not like Mullins, those are like kind of leadoff hitters. I don't know how much they qualify. I don't know how much they strike out exactly, but this team doesn't necessarily seem like that. So obviously it's just solid, right? You're going to get, you're going to get your peaks and valleys, and, hopefully your net positive is enough to get you across to the next round.
All right. Did you want to take a look at your team, or?
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, quite literally.
You didn't see it all yourself?
Only what we've looked at.
All right. So you ended up 7-6-7 also. I
actually think my settings are maxed at 7-6-7 because there's a couple of guts of only infielders in my. So because I'm only using a third of the players, mm-hmm. there just happens to be several spots where like I'm either taking an infielder or I do sometimes go find pitchers that are not on these teams, right? So I don't mind digging. I've been digging at other pitchers or whatever. But I think my auto draft teams are always going to end up 7-6-7 because generally I have some solid infielders in there. Yeah, but this could prove me wrong.
This pitching staff that you put together here with auto draft has a really strong top end, and then you've got this Hunter Green, Tristan McKenzie injury question mark.
High upside, high risk, high reward, right? That's right. Okay to me. I think I like embracing that risk. I do recognize that I've actually had to keep moving McKenzie's ADP down and down and down. That's fair.
Yeah, and he's going to keep falling, I think, till you get that first bit of good news. But he's a guy that comes back even for a week in the playoffs, and he can score for you. So
yeah, I mean, look, I could definitely get carried to the playoffs with this current rotation.
Yeah, and Tariq Skubal here at the end is another guy who's coming off
he's
surgery.
Flying up ADP. He was absolutely undrafted like a week ago, and he just absolutely soared up the boards.
Yes, I've been saying that he was a good last round pick for a few weeks now, and now I'm worried based on where he's going. I feel like there's a little bit. I was big on him going into last season before he got injured. I thought he was a good value. Probably
the bat likes him.
About
That's what
that
I've noticed.
Okay, because he was like basically one of the few success stories coming out of this like big group of Detroit prospects.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the one that was supposed to be the success story. So that was also kind of why I liked him. But obviously we don't know what he's going to be like now. I think he's still fine here at this ADP, but
at pitcher 7, it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yep. Yeah. So then your infield, Bo Bichette, Gunnar Henderson, Carlos Correa, Josh Naylor, Christopher Morel, and Joey Votto.
A little weaker than I'd prefer.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest. And most of my drafts don't, even when I auto draft, they don't structurally end up like this. Generally, I've taken some of the infield, like Trey Turner ends up in a lot of my builds. I was getting a lot of second round Vlads that I must have just missed him.
Yeah, and I think with this Spencer Strider, Zach Wheeler, Joe Ryan combo, I think that probably
they just fell into my high picks. Yeah. And so I'm going to end up with some weaker builds when my pitching's strong.
Our Detroit expert here, who you might have seen in the app as CLT Go Blue when he's able to get away from Michigan. He says, "Get your Reese Orelson shares now."
He left the game early today for some reason, right?
Yeah, it was a comebacker. They're saying it's just a bruise. So yeah, so no Bo Sox was also in on Phillies, so it took some of the guys.
Like a part of me was nervous just to come on and like share my direct, like, here's my draft board, like, you just like, and I'm auto drafting, and like, here's the cheat sheet to beat me, like, to like, and multiple people from the regulars of the drafts are listening, and like, it's okay, I honestly don't mind, but it's a
funny.
little concerning as like a game theory guy that not the best use of my time, but
well, I appreciate
totally
it.
good.
We've been trying to hook up here for a few weeks. And,
I'm glad it worked out on a Thursday, which like most Thursdays would have worked for me. It's like, and actually Friday tomorrow would have worked out for the first time in forever.
That's all right.
But it's okay.
Yeah, we're all friends here, competing over the same money. So yeah, your outfield: Bryce Harper, Anthony Santander, Stephen Kwan, Cody Bellinger, Whit Merrifield, Brandon Marsh, Alex Kirilloff. Yeah, it's perfectly nice. If you get Bryce Harper to be Bryce Harper, it almost won't matter what anybody else does.
And if he's not, then I'm probably not going to advance, and that's fine. Well, hopefully we'll advance on a different ticket, right? I mean, obviously, like, part of me is like, there's going to be good and bad outcomes. I'm really curious what my advance rate is going to end up looking like. It could be really substantial, because if I'm playing all these extra games, with these Guardians and Blue Jays and Phillies and whatnot, that, it could be, if I advance more than, average, I would be pretty happy. And then, the playoffs, whatever happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Do you have anything that you want to shout out, or have anybody follow you further? Or if you want to go back into obscurity, that's fine, after giving away your strategies.
No. No, not really. I'm not a big plug guy. I'm happy to come on and support your stuff, and I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm down to get weird on any sports topic, and that's my specialty. So this was a nice little. I already had my strategy of getting weird in advance, and I've already implemented it. So it was definitely nice talking baseball with you, though.
Yes, thank you for joining me. Everybody else, thank you for joining me. We got 2 more shows till this contest closes, and we'll be here next Friday, and then I think the Thursday after that, and we'll see who I can line up for guests. I don't have anybody.
So I need to find out if I'm able to play while I'm in Las Vegas or not. A lot of gambling stuff like DraftKings, I can't play while I'm in Nevada, and I'm getting ready to go to Vegas for 2 weeks. So I might have to do all my lineups well in advance and pray. So
that's true. I think it is not allowed.
I think that's right.
I'm sure somebody will answer here in the chat. Yeah. Good luck to you, and good luck to everybody. And I'm going to go out to the woods for a few days. So have a good weekend.
Have fun camping, actually. I enjoy that more as an adult than I did as a younger adult. So
all right. See ya.
Take care.